While Hurricane Sandy was definitely a very tragic event, it also had a huge impact on American politics. With the 2012 election approaching just 2 weeks from the start of the hurricane, both candidates, President Barack Obama and Mitt Romney, were forced to alter their campaign strategies significantly. This video from the Washington Post provides a little context to the situation.
And Dan Balz joins us to try to figure out what they might be. Good to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Both campaigns have really rejiggered their schedules.
Yes, the president actually canceled a planned event in Florida early Monday. He had flown down to do it, decided not to, has flown back. Governor Romney canceled all of his events except for one today and everything tomorrow. So basically we're going to have no campaigning for the rest of today and for Tuesday, and then people will decide. I think there's a question about the kind of enthusiasm that was out there for him, that was building. We've seen it on the ground, we've seen it in some polls. Does this kind of short circuit that?
As Dan Balz from the Washington Post states in the video, Romney had gained somewhat of a momentum at that point in time, with poll numbers and media coverage showing an obvious shift in his favor. Hurricane Sandy, however, curtailed this momentum as news coverage immediately turned to the destruction, aftermath, and response of the hurricane, rather than the election at hand.
Important message that I have for the public right now is please listen to what your state and local officials.
Further, the fact that in times of turmoil and destruction, the president is often called upon to take initiative and act as a leader for the nation meant that President Obama would be getting a significantly larger amount of news coverage than Romney during those last 2 pivotal weeks. In fact, as one scientific study shows on the 2012 election, immediately following the positive news coverage of Obama's handling of the storm's aftermath, many Americans held a more optimistic view on Obama. That an outside force of nature could have such an impact on the presidential election is a little unsettling. Chris Matthews from MSNBC elaborates on this idea in the following video.
Let me finish tonight again with this storm. They're called black swans, those unpredictable, unknown forces that enter a campaign, often in the last week that, to use the language of the comic books, changed the course of mighty rivers. There was George W.'s admission of an old driving under the influence charge. His real crime, I would say, was leading this country under the influence of Dick Cheney and his neoconservative allies into Iraq. But the black swan now swooping across the country East Coast, our country's East Coast, carries with it all the unpredictables and unknowns for which the species owes its name. It swoops in, it is dark with mystery. This storm will pass, thank God, but what it leaves in its trail is still a stranger. I've said for days that the power of the first presidential debate would not die until operated on by an outside force. That's Newton's first law of physics, and it applies to politics as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that outside force, whichever direction it takes, is now upon us. A black swan now has us on its wings. And that's Hardball for now. Thanks for being with us.
While the study on the 2012 election also stated that by Election Day, reminders of the hurricane became a drag instead of a boon for the president, which would ultimately benefit Mitt Romney, it also concluded that Hurricane Sandy overall helped Obama as his media coverage was mostly favorable. Further, both candidates were unable to campaign in a few pivotal states because of the storm. And while there is no certainty that this would have changed the outcome of the election, it is worth speculating in case natural disasters take place during an election in the future.